Hi, I'm Anitra, and this is Trib Talk. We're here right now with Will Snowden from the Vera Institute talking about money injustice. Thank you so much for joining us, Will.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about what the Vera Institute is, and then you guys recently released a report with some of your partners regarding money injustice in New Orleans.
That's
so
right.
kind of tell us about some of the highlights of this report.
Yeah, so the Vera Institute of Justice, we're a nonprofit that focuses on criminal justice reform. We often do so from the perspective of data.
Okay.
We often collect data from our government partners. We identify problems within that data, and then we try to pilot solutions based on best practices. We've been in New Orleans since 2006. We were specifically invited by then Council Member James Carter to help manage the jail population and really look at strategies that could be used to reduce the jail population. Before Hurricane Katrina, the average monthly jail population was about 6,500 people. Now we're averaging about 1,200. So we've had a huge reduction, a huge testament that this size of a city doesn't need that size of a jail. Although we've had that huge reduction, we're still about 1.3 times higher than national averages, which means we still have some way to go. And so our report, called Paid in Full, actually is in the spirit of that effort. This report specifically highlights how New Orleans can replace its money bail system with a system that more appropriately equips the judges with assessing who to detain and who to release, surrounding and anchoring on public safety. We also advocate for the ending of conviction fees on the tail end, because both money bail and conviction fees have demonstrated to just be an extraction of wealth from poor black folks in the city.
Gotcha. So what you're saying in a sense is that one of the reasons we still have, and although we've made some great strides, one of the reasons that we have a larger jail population on average than other places across the nation is because of our bail system. That's an issue.
That's part of it, yeah.
Okay. You know what? We've had a few things that have recently made news, and so I want to be clear. So we're not talking about the Vera Institute supporting or calling for the elimination of the bail system or anything like that, are we?
Well, we actually are. So we don't believe, and the data demonstrates that money bail actually doesn't keep us safe. And so when we're having conversations about who should be released in this pretrial period, we specifically want that decision to be made around an assessment of if this person has any type of potential danger or risk to the community, and it shouldn't be anchoring around how much money this person has.
So if the person is really a risk, then maybe it's just no bail.
That's right.
Versus someone who isn't a risk and who can be released and with pretty good assurance that they're going to return to their court dates. That's right. I get you.
Because we believe that the keys to the jail should not be the coins in your pocket. And what we know is that you could be somebody charged with a violent crime, have a violent criminal history, and after an assessment from a judge, pose a particular threat to the community, and the judge could set a $50,000 bail on you.
You can make that.
If you have money, that no longer eliminates the danger that's been recognized. So what we are trying to do is replace money bail with a system that more appropriately assesses the potential danger somebody might pose to public safety, and have that being the foundation of deciding who gets released and who gets detained.
Gotcha. So what are some of the, if you had to highlight 3 major points of the Paid in Full report that the Vera Institute recently just released, what are some of the points that you would want our readers and viewers to know about money bail?
Certainly. So one of the main things I want us to appreciate is this unique moment that we have in 2019. And that was set up by 2 lawsuits in 2018. So there were 2 federal courts that demonstrated and ruled that the way that we are using money bail on the front end is unconstitutional, as well as it's a financial conflict of interest, as well as the fines and fees on the tail end being unconstitutional and a financial conflict of interest. And part of the reasoning in which money bail was decided to be a financial conflict of interest is that when anybody utilize the bail bondsman, they typically have to pay a 12% premium. Of that 12%, 1.8% goes to the courts. And so part of the ruling was the judges can't be in a position of setting the amount for the bail knowing that they're going to get a percentage of that overall amount. And so the federal court said that was a financial conflict of interest. And the unconstitutionality portion was relating to the types of assessment and determination the judges need to be doing when deciding how much of a person could actually post to get out. So I think seizing this moment is something that we need to be recognizing, that there have been 2 federal lawsuits that are saying, listen, the way that you're using money bail and conviction fines and fees on the tail end is unconstitutional. So think about what is a way that we could actually transfer from a money bail system to a system that more appropriately looks at somebody's dangerousness or potential risk to society.
Okay, gotcha. You know what? I looked at some of the details about the money bail system, and I was looking at the history of it, and you keep talking about how this idea of bail on the front end. And so I was surprised to learn that historically, bail was not something that people had to post on the front end.
That's right.
In case of if they were arrested for a crime, that it was actually simply people were generally released, and then the bail system was, if you did not show up to court, then you or whatever person may have vouched for you would then have to pay that money to the court. And so the bail system as we know it today has changed dramatically from its historical beginnings and its original intent. And so let's talk a little bit more about how bail is used and disproportionately impacts poor communities.
Certainly. And so you're absolutely right that historically what bail meant was the right to be released. And over time we have seen it transition to be a commercial bail system. And so just as a quick reminder, if the judge sets a $10,000 bond, the law says you have to pay 12% of that. And most families don't have $10,000, so what they'll do is they'll pay $1,200 to a bail bondsman, or if there's some type of payment plan they're able to get into with the bail bondsman, they post that amount, the bail bondsman then goes signs a promissory note, and the person is released. There actually isn't any transfer of funds or money at that time from the bail bondsman to the court.
The only one who's giving up money is the
family. And we know that historically the idea of putting up money was to be an incentive that the person keeps coming to court, knowing that they're going to get that money back at the tail end. So if I have a $10,000 bond, and let's say my parents are wealthy and they post that $10,000, I want to keep coming to court so that at the end of my case, that $10,000 goes back to my family.
And you get the $10,000 or whatever the bond is, you get that back no matter how the case is adjudicated.
That's right. It doesn't matter if I'm found guilty. It doesn't matter if I'm found not guilty. It doesn't matter if the case is dismissed. That $10,000 will go back to my parents if they in fact put it up. But we know that 85% of the people that are coming through our criminal court system here at Tulane and Broad, that they are represented by public defenders, and that represents that they are in fact too poor to afford an attorney, and more than likely too poor to actually pay the entire amount of the bail bond.
Right.
So what they're doing is they're utilizing bail bondsmen, and if it's a $10,000 bond, they're putting up $1,200. And if I go to trial, let's say that I'm the person that's accused of a crime and I'm found guilty, that $1,200 doesn't go back.
Right.
If I'm found not guilty, that $1,200 doesn't go back. If the case is dismissed,
that was just
that
the fee paid
$1,200 doesn't go back. That was the premium fee paid to the bail bondsman so that they could sign the promissory note that would allow me to get out and fight the case from the street.
Gotcha. Okay, so I understand that in just a week or so there is an event that the Vera Institute and some of its partners is hosting. It's called Paid in Full. It is July 3rd, right?
That's right.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the when and where and the what that this is going to be.
Absolutely. So our report that just came out on June 12th is called Paid in Full. We are having an event on July 3rd from 6 to 8 p.m. at the historic Carver Theater on Orleans Avenue. We're using this as a moment to really bring awareness to the time that we are in terms of an opportunity to replace money bail with a system that more focuses on public safety, but also educate the community on how this has impacted our New Orleans community. We're going to have conversations from impacted people who have had to either pay a bail or fines and fees on the tail end. We'll also have a panel discussion on some of the experts in this field talking about how this particular system is not the best system that we should be advocating for in New Orleans, but then also having a conversation with some of the leadership in New Orleans, representatives from the city council, the court, the public defender, and potentially the district attorney, so that we can see how the leaders of the leaders in the criminal justice system space are addressing this issue as well.
Okay.
And it's not just going to be educational, there'll be some entertainment as
Right,
well.
right.
And we're
Music,
gonna
right?
got to have music. We will have some local entertainment coming to provide music in between some of the panels. It'll be hosted by Brittany Packnett, who
Okay.
is a national known host of Pod Save the People, and she'll be helping guide the conversation of this event.
Okay. You know what? Another question just really popped into my mind real quickly. You were talking about the fines and fees that people who find themselves in the criminal justice system may face on the tail end. Let's talk a little bit more about how all of that is just one big cycle. Because if I'm poor and I'm in the criminal justice system, and so the case has been adjudicated, maybe I've been given probation or parole, but then I have all these fines and fees.
That's right.
And if I can't pay the fines and fees,
you are faced with punishment of being back in jail.
Right.
And so it is really, this extraction of wealth from poor communities here in New Orleans. And it's not just on the front end with the fees that you have to pay with the money bail and the premium, but also on the tail end. There are conviction fines and conviction fees that are associated with the adjudication of your case, and that might mean paying for the probation supervision. That might mean paying for the drug tests that are associated with that supervision. And it is an endless cycle of always having to pay as part of the resolution of the case.
Okay. So when you talk about this idea of replacing the money bail system with a system that actually looks at the risk or the danger that an individual may be to society, and when this particular report that was released, this upcoming conversation, I guess what I'm wondering is, when you've had the occasion to kind of get a feel for what other people in the legal community and the criminal justice system and community are thinking, what kind of reception is this idea getting?
Yeah, so I think people are really excited about a way that we can be updating our criminal justice system. The elimination of money bail isn't only happening in New Orleans. There has been significant bail reform in New Jersey, in New York, in Washington, D.C., Kentucky. So there are jurisdictions that actually do not utilize money bail as the piece to decide who gets detained and who gets released. Locally, we have produced this report that was endorsed and supported by over 32 community organizations. And so there is a local perspective and a local appreciation that we need to be moving away from this money injustice and get to a system that is really looking at public safety, because that's something that we are all concerned about. Now, when we naturally tell people that we're trying to eliminate money bail, people think, well, you're just going to let everybody out of jail. That doesn't make sense in terms of public safety, and that's not what we're advocating for. We're advocating for the appreciation of who might have a potential risk to our public safety, and focusing on that population and deciding whether or not they should be detained, or there are alternatives that don't require detention, that are levels of supervision that will help ensure our public safety, but understanding that there are people in jail right now, not because they're a danger, not because they're a risk, they're there simply because they are poor.
Right, so money just doesn't have to be a part of the equation, basically.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that if someone is a risk and they would either pose a risk to society or whatever the case may be. If released, then there's this, you're looking at a system that would say this person does not get released, until their case has been adjudicated. Period.
That's right.
Money doesn't have to be a part of the system. So
That's right.
And that really is important, because people should realize that what you're not advocating for, what the Vera Institute is not advocating for, is just letting everybody get out of jail without,
no, not at all.
without some kind of reasoning and some system in place to ensure that the rest of us are safe. So.
That's right. But we should, we do talk about, we have about 12 recommendations in our report. And if the recommendations are potentially adopted, we could have a reduction in the jail population between 300 and 600 people.
Okay.
And that's significant. And that gets us more in line with national averages. It actually can make us better than average. But it is anchored with this idea of public safety, because we know that is what the community is worried about. The community is also concerned about not having people be in jail just because they're poor.
Right.
Right. And it doesn't make sense that if somebody is a danger and they're rich, that they can get out. But if you're not a danger and you're poor, you're being stuck in jail.
Right. You said the recommendations you looked at, that if they were followed, if this were adopted, we could be looking at,
between 300, roughly
so
between
25 to
300 and
50% of our current, 25% to 50% of our current jail population are in there now because of money, because
That's
of
right.
bail. Okay.
That's right.
Wow. So this is a very interesting and important issue as we look at our criminal justice system. Of course, I always like to end every Trib talk by simply asking, is there anything I haven't asked that you want the people that read the Tribune and watch Trib talk to know?
I think it's just really important to be aware that we are in a space where we're proposing something new. And it is something that might initially be hard to digest and understand. But we've laid it out in a 60-plus page report. We want people to read the report.
And where can they find the report?
Yeah, so if you go to vera.org and you simply search for Paid in Full, you'll be able to see the report online.
Okay.
And there's actually a centerfold, if I can just show you, within our report. You can actually look at the centerfold, easily look at the 12 recommendations that we have and get an understanding of the issue.
Okay.
And then seeing the context in which we've laid out this blueprint within the report, all that is online at our website, vera.org.
Okay, great. And remind everybody about July 3rd, time, date, place.
Absolutely. So we want everybody to come out to our event called Paid in Full. We are hosting the event with an organization called Global Citizen, as well as RFK Center for Human Rights. It's going to be at the Carver Theater from 6 to 8 p.m. We encourage everybody to RSVP online. If you go to our website or you go to Eventbrite, type in Paid in Full, you'll be able to see the event for the Carver Theater. We are almost sold out.
Okay, cool.
The tickets don't cost anything, but we need people to RSVP to reserve the space. So we hope people can come out and join us, celebrate this moment, continue this momentum, and really recognize the way in which we could be making our city safer.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, Will.
Thank you. Appreciate it.